Hey everybody, how you guys doing? I'm excited to be here in Seoul with you guys. The context for this is, as many of you guys know, the music industry is evolving rapidly. Global, deeply passionate fan bases like here in Seoul. We've got recurring royalty streams, iconic IP. All of these things are making music one of the most compelling but still most widely underexplored cultural objects and real-world assets. So in this panel, we're going to take a look at how crypto and tokenization and AI are reshaping the entire value chain, from rights attribution to licensing to ownership and distribution. And as programmable IP becomes foundational across the internet, and particularly for the next generation of financial and creative infrastructure, we're going to explore whether music could prove to be its most emotionally resonant and commercially viable frontier. So very excited to be moderating this panel. I'm going to let our esteemed panelists introduce themselves. David, you want to start?
Sure. Hey, I'm Dave Kostiner. I am the Chief IP Officer and co-founder of Aria. I'm also an entertainment lawyer based out of San Francisco and LA. I was a professional musician until I was about 30, went to law school for music, and have really just been, I was a co-founder of IOTA, one of the first digital distributors, currently rep high value innovators and creators and many funds. But I'm really enjoying my sort of transfer into the crypto world because it's marrying a lot of things I've enjoyed over the years, monetizing IP, providing access and co-creation.
Jangwon.
Hi, I'm Jangwon Lee of Content Technologies. So I think you've seen other esteemed speakers today from some of the top labels in Korea. There was SM, there's Hybe, there's the Black Label, among other top labels that have spoken here. We are a younger company. A lot of them have been around for more than 20 years. SM, one of the earliest and longest standing music powerhouse in Korea. Content Technologies, I founded back in late 2020, so we've been around 5 years in the running. But during the course of the last 5 years, we became one of the fastest growing music infrastructure businesses in Korea. We've raised over $300 million across our affiliated companies and at Content Technologies. And we now hold stakes, majority and strategic stakes in a number of diversified labels. We also have infrastructure in terms of music distribution, music marketing, publishing, all aspects of music IP and music businesses that represent sort of the new generation of K-pop infrastructure that exists today.
Thank you both. So crypto has this very fun, interesting history of trying to tokenize a lot of different things. Why is music IP uniquely suited to become a real-world asset?
Well, I mean, music and IP is, freely licensed, but it usually involves lots of lawyers, which I like. But, gatekeepers and usually a lot of money. The types of assets we're tokenizing vary from tranches of hundreds of millions of dollars to investments in labels and the products of the labels. But to do that, you really need to know a lot of people, and you add to that the permissionless remixing or UGC capabilities of Story. And actually the blockchain's a perfect place for IP to live because you provide access and funding to the labels and to investors. You also give co-creators like remixers or whatever access to some of their favorite works, and not everything on Aria is going to be able to be remixed, but a lot of it is. And what we want to do is create the NASDAQ for IP, and IP is culture, and this just hasn't been done before. So we're really looking forward to scaling.
One, I think, defining aspect of music that's comparable to other types of IP, such as name and likeness, or even more visual art, is that music IP generate recurring and relatively stable cash flow. So for other types of IP, name and likeness, its cash flow is based on one-off cases of licensing. Similar for artwork, a lot of visual art, artwork, IP, it accumulates in value over time, but the time the value is actually realized is at the time of transaction. So while you hold the artwork, there are limited ways of that artwork generating cash flow. Same with name and likeness. But with music assets, music IP, it's a uniquely advanced and relatively long historied sort of IP that has continued to show a very strong ability to generate a recurring and relatively predictable cash flow over an extended period of time. In Korea and the US, music IPs are protected up to 7 years after the demise of the songwriter or the creator of the IP. And during that course of time, so if the songwriter is alive for the next 50 years, that's 120 years of IP protection. That 120 years is the longevity of the IP that's able to generate cash flow based on royalties month on month. So every month for the course of the IP's existence. For that reason, music IP is a unique asset class, or has been noted as a unique asset class that can be valued relatively objectively. It can be valued quantitatively, and it is being considered a even more of a stable asset class that can be compared against oil or gold these days.
It's a great point in that, you know, music's relatively recession-proof. Spotify, Apple Music, these companies aren't going away, and when people feel bad, they're not necessarily dropping their Spotify subscription. They're still going to consume music. And, you know, Aria is looking into supporting TV series or, you know, streaming series. We are buying high-value artwork that does pay a yield because it is creating income. So there's a, you know, a universe of assets that can be invested into and shared that just it wasn't possible without the blockchain providing worldwide access.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about when we originally met was people just do not stop listening to music. Has anyone here ever given up listening to music?
Yeah.
No, exactly. So you guys focus on two different parts of the kind of broader value chain within music. Aria, you guys are focused on tokenization. With Contents Technologies, you guys focus a bit more on aggregation, fintech, publishing, distribution. Could you talk about how those models differ, and if so, any areas where they might converge?
Yeah, I mean, I think Aria sort of comes after the expertise of CT. You know, we effectively purchase income rights from labels or artists or whatever, but we don't compete with Web 2. We complement. We're opening a new universe of investment or co-creation, but we're not trying to replace anything or disrupt so much. And obviously Jangwon can tell more about what his companies do, but we're not developing the talent. We're creating the financialization and the access for co-creation, but we don't see ourselves as scaling the talent itself.
Yeah, I think the distribution, publishing infrastructure of music has already been relatively well digitalized over the course of last decade. A lot of the data is there. The level of transparency, some still criticize, but it's been made better over time. And I think the fact that a lot of the data with regards to music, the logs, is already digitalized, makes it easier for that data to be naturally converged with blockchain technology. So whether it be converged in financial ways, so that these assets can be more easily collateralized or tokenized, or whether it be more creatively converged via means of remixes or reconfigurations of original music. I think there are different ways of converging the music assets or the creative aspects of music with blockchain, because music is already a fundamentally a digital asset.
Thank you both. I think our audience has heard a lot about AI and crypto today. It's obviously something that's very top of mind for content and media creators. So I'm curious, what do you guys think the role AI plays in licensing, rights management, media and content generation, and how should rights be attributed and enforced?
Well, I mean, this is a tough one because I was a musician most of my life. My clients are musicians. I feel that music is the sound of emotion. It's a uniquely human thing that if you're at a concert hall or even listening at home, and the reason people like pop songs is that they combine something that's intimately familiar with them and shared with something just a little bit new that makes it exciting, and I don't think it's a coincidence that everybody loves K-pop. It's great music that people really identify with, and not every K-pop song is popular. There's certain things that people identify with. I get a little uncomfortable with the idea of AI making this. I feel like we're kind of losing humanity in favor of efficiency, but I think AI is a fantastic tool for the creation of content, for musicians to use, for remixing perhaps. So I'm not a Luddite, and I mean, I'm a drummer, so I got replaced by drum machines years ago. But frankly, they provided a tool that, humans couldn't do. Prince showed that with early on. So I think there's a place for it, but I certainly am not in favor of replacing humans, for AI.
Yeah, I think one of the quotes that I remembered from when we first met was people like real icons. People like having real physical human figures to look up to and to idolize and to aspire towards.
Yeah, and I mean, K-pop shows that. Each member of each band is idolized for being a human. Now, maybe they'll have avatar. They've tried avatar artists. It wasn't really quite there. So, look, there's songwriting too, and they just released a K-pop song that was AI written. But I'm voting for humans. That's with AI complementation.
I do feel that because of AI, the music creation market could be more polarized between some of the more iconic creative producers of music versus a lot of the musicians or creative workers who might have been producing some of the more sort of background music like music, or so to say, lower quality music. In the past, all the music was made by humans. I feel the iconic, top-notch music has more to benefit from AI in terms of the propagation and proliferation of that music by means of AI-driven remixes and AI-driven content production. But for some of the lower quality music that has also had a place in the market, I think that part could be in perils or jeopardized because of the development of AI and AI-produced music.
So we've talked about music creation and a bit about licensing. How does the convergence of blockchain and music impact fan ownership and engagement?
Well, I mean, the fact that, I was not a huge NFT fan because I felt like there should be a there, but the fact that you saw NFTs blow up because people wanted a connection to their favorite artist, or even to be, to own one of a few, I think that concept can be transferred to yield too, There's no reason, especially voting and things like that, or maybe a label is selling a share of income. That same sort of involvement and support, I think, will exist even more when Aria is moving into sports and different things. Maybe you're picking NCAA athletes and getting a return on their NIL rights, and that's amazing. It's never been done before, and so I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities that we'll be taking advantage of that just weren't possible before.
Yeah, I do feel that there is a stark difference between NFTs and tokenized RWAs. in that NFTs were more of a representation of a scarce digital commodity or digital symbolism. But RWA is a much more of a financial a vehicle in its fundamental definition. Whether it be RWA based on music assets, whether it be RWA based on name and likeness, all these other, or films and drama, there are a bunch of different IPs, and there are a bunch of different ways of these IPs generating cash flow. RWA represents not the digital images of these artworks or these content, but it represents the financial value and it represents a stake in the continued generated cash flow that comes from certain aspects of these rights. So I think RWAs do have a more of an objective way of being valued and being quantitatively analyzed and have its place within not only the creative space, but also financial asset class space.
That was a way better answer than mine.
Let's look ahead a year or two. Let's say 2 years. 2027. Will music IP portfolios be treated as institutional grade assets? And who's going to be buying these? Who's transacting these?
I mean, I hope so, and I would think, normies. I think obviously degens and the foundation of Web3, but I mean, I'm a normie. I think that people need to be comfortable in their investment, and it's not just going to go to the moon and then to the ground. And so, yeah, the hope with Aria is 5 years down the road, we've got hundreds of top quality IPs that all pay yield, and everyone understands, and they're investing in it, and it is an asset class. And in fact, it's very rich people can do this. They invest in music funds, and they get a great return, and it's part of the mix of their portfolio.
Yeah, so I think these asset classes, whether it be music assets, even film and video assets, they are already being enjoyed by the high net worth individuals, the few, and the institutions. There are funds around the world that are mandated, focused on acquiring music assets, acquiring film and video assets that generate continued royalty-based cash flows. And it's not open, it's not accessible to the wider public of retail investors as well as fans. I think, and it has its reasons. It's difficult to access the pipelines. It's difficult to evaluate the value of these assets. It's difficult to direct the cash flows generated from the royalties to smaller bits and pieces so that it can be meted out to individual holders. So currently all the funds are focused on larger capital providers such as sovereign wealth funds or high net worth individuals or institutions. I think RWA or tokenized assets, blockchainized music or content IP assets pave the way for a wider audience or wider retail investor base to have access to this asset class that's already institutional grade. And for some of these smaller institutions that might not have had the chance to participate, they could also participate via these open platforms.
2025 has been a huge year for crypto on the regulatory front. What are the regulatory frameworks that kind of govern this asset class, especially as it kind of explodes and offers access to the longer tail of consumers and institutions?
Yeah, so David's the lawyer.
Yeah, I'm a music lawyer, okay? Securities lawyer. I mean, we're SEC compliant, so we're all following the rules and seeing what comes next. I think hopefully things become more sane. We did a Reg S offering for our APL launch. Qualified investors can invest in these kind of things. So I think everyone in the crypto space is doing what they can to be compliant, hoping that things become a little more rational in the future. And I mean, it's hard to tell what rational is in our government right now, but maybe it is becoming more rational on the crypto side.
Cool. Yesterday, you guys announced some big news. I don't want to steal the thunder, so I'll let you guys talk about the announcement that you guys made yesterday.
Well, yeah. So we K-pop is a big asset or a big cultural class for us, and we were lucky enough to bring some of CT's assets on chain with sort of an introductory tranche for Aria, and Jangwon can talk more about that.
CT is Contents Technologies, which is Jangwon's firm.
Yeah, I mean, Content Technology is a long name, so we go by CT.
But crypto Twitter also is CT, so it could be confusing to a lot of folks here.
Among a number of music infrastructure businesses that Content Technologies owns and operates, we also have ownership stakes in a number of labels. Not the labels that are as big or as recognized as the Hives or the SMs, but some of the larger mid-tail or long-tail independent labels. And in aggregate, these labels have more than 50 artists and tens of thousands of songs underneath their umbrella. We were lucky to find a partner that I felt comfortable with to explore how this massive assets that's largely Web 2 cemented currently to explore how it can be better utilized or better assetized, better remixed via Stories infrastructure, as well as Aria's ability to wrap these assets into crypto-native financial assets. So it's what I believe the first of many cases of these partnerships happening. We were lucky to be the sort of the initiative that will pull the trigger. But I believe that other institutions, other labels, other music companies, other non-music content IP companies will follow suit as our partnership shows real ways of how this works.
Yeah, we hope to have a lot of announcements coming up over the next few months. I mean, what we're offering is an ability for labels to be financed to increase their stock or their token price like a stock, where investors believe in them and their new artists and what they're doing. They can create lending markets, or we can create lending markets so they can extract capital from their token holdings. I mean, it's a brave new world that it's really quite exciting. So we're honored to have Content Technologies as our anchor. That's why I say CT, because I can't talk.
Congratulations, and I'm sure it'll be the first of many. Yeah. All right, final question. I'm going to throw this one at you guys. You have an unlimited amount of money. Any music artist catalog or labels catalog in the world that you could acquire, what would it be and why?
Taylor Swift. So I have it. So I have to re-record again.
Why, just in case it's not obvious to everyone here?
Well, Taylor Swift's the whole thing where she, Scooter Braun had bought her catalog from her label. She got very upset. She re-recorded everything and did quite well, which makes you think that maybe it was planned. But anyway, no, I mean, there's so much great music out there that I just buy it all if I have unlimited funds.
Yep, and you've just raised $20 million, so that helps.
What do we got?
Although Taylor Swift's catalog would be, much more. Yeah. I mean, for us, our focus currently is still a lot on Korea, a lot on Asia. We think this is a new playbook that the incumbent, some of the more established, bigger players aren't necessarily taking notice of, and which Content Technologies was nimble enough to sort of find our place and position within the market. I hope we have more ability to explore Japan, more ability to opportunity to explore Taiwan. I think there are a lot of assets that are very valuable, iconic in other parts of Asia that we feel we'd love to invest in, and also work with Aria to better propagate its its potential.
Yeah, this is my first time in Seoul, and I must say I've been like really impressed by how quickly consumers and retail adopts new products and how eager like large famous celebrities are to try out new things as well. So excited to see what both of you guys do on that front, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.